A battle may be around the corner. Young children are taught new fighting tactics, and weapon-carrying trucks are spotted rolling down the street. But an expert says Beijing is just trying to boost morale. Little financial aid, blocked from going to work, personal freedom halted. That's the situation in one Chinese city for the past 7 months. Amid strict pandemic lockdown orders, many who are suffering have been silenced. China ramps up surveillance use in its battle against the pandemic. For Chinese citizens, if a confirmed virus patient so much as walks by, they may end up confined in quarantine. And a Chinese property developer is knee-deep in a debt crisis. But it's not Evergrande. The group missed a payment to investors, and now its shares are halted on Hong Kong Stock Exchange. Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Before we start with our daily news, we have a short announcement. We have our premiere at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time from Monday to Saturday on our YouTube channel and also on TV. NTD is available on many platforms, including cable TV, satellite, and over-the-air TV across the U.S., and it continues to grow. Please check out ntd.com/TV. Type in your zip code to find all the ways you can watch our show. That's ntd.com/TV. It seems a battle may be brewing when even the very young are taught with new tactics in China. Footage of Chinese children participating in some military-themed activities is making the rounds on Chinese-language social media. The kids were dressed in Red Army uniforms and carried rucksacks with the Chinese words for dynamite bag emblazoned on top. Accompanied by their parents, the kids were supposed to break through the enemy blockade. The dynamite bags may be a reference to communist soldier Dong Chunrui. He's a household name in China and one of the CCP's favorite mentions in its propaganda. Carrying a dynamite bag, Dong allegedly blew himself up during the Chinese Civil War. His aim was to destroy a blockade set up by the opposing nationalist army. Dong's story is included in Chinese textbooks to educate Chinese children how they should sacrifice themselves for the Communist Party. Some netizens gasp at the message the activity is trying to deliver to the kids. One wrote, while Japan, Europe, and the United States often conduct escape drills to educate children on how to escape from danger, some countries are the opposite. They make their kids carry dynamite bags and act as a human shield. Another wrote, how stupid do parents have to be to let their children carry an explosive bag look-alike? Another user posted an image of the exercise with the text, how to raise child terrorists. China will make people who support Taiwan independence criminally liable for life, a spokeswoman for China's Taiwan Affairs Office said on Friday. This was the first time that the communist regime has talked about how they would punish such people. And also for the first time, Beijing named 3 Taiwanese politicians for this category. They are the Taiwanese Premier Su Tseng-chang, Parliament Speaker Yo Shi-kun, and former Minister Joseph Wu. Beijing said these 3 are not allowed to enter mainland China, Hong Kong, or Macau. And companies who fund them won't be allowed to profit from the mainland, such as doing business there. Taiwan's government responded, saying Taiwan is a democratic society with rule of law and it's not ruled by Beijing. Beijing didn't mention Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen this time, but Beijing has already labeled her a separatist many times in the past. Taiwan said Taiwan is already an independent country called the Republic of China. That's the formal name of the island. Taiwan is developing a stronger tie with European countries amid constant threats from Beijing. At a news conference on Friday, the chairman of the EU Parliament's delegation said their decision is not made based on Beijing's reactions. He said Taiwan's international integration will diffuse potential conflict with China.
The more you interact with Taiwan, the further you get from a war situation. Because the more you send the signal that it will have a cost to do anything outrageous against Taiwanese democracy.
It's the first official EU delegation to Taiwan. The delegation has 13 members of the EU's Committee on Foreign Interference in Democratic Processes. The EU lawmakers' visit comes after Taiwan's Foreign Minister Joseph Wu made a rare trip to Europe last month. Taiwan doesn't have formal diplomatic ties with any European nations except Vatican City, but it's keen to strengthen its relations with members of the European Union. Last month, the European Parliament adopted a resolution to deepen ties with Taiwan, including through investment agreements. As tensions between China and Taiwan are rising, footage of what are alleged to be weapon-carrying trucks entering the Chinese city of Fuzhou have flooded the Chinese internet. Netizens are again speculating about a potential invasion of Taiwan, as the city is the capital of a Chinese province right across the Taiwan Strait. Similar videos of military trucks appearing in other Chinese cities have been making the rounds on the internet as well. However, some China observers say that the Chinese regime isn't serious about invading Taiwan immediately, but is instead pumping up a sense of impending war with Taiwan and putting on a show for the Chinese people to watch. Political commentator Beijing told Radio Free Asia that if there was going to be a war, basically it would be under martial law. While the CCP now is trying to give public morale a boost and show we haven't given up on annexing Taiwan. Whether these trucks are targeting Taiwan or not, their journeys haven't seen smooth sailing. Online video shows that one of the trucks collided with another truck carrying pigs. The accident caused quite a scene on the highway. When China is stuck in an energy crisis, some of the biggest help seems to be coming from an American company. Natural gas company Venture Global signed a record-breaking liquefied natural gas deal with China. The company will provide over 80 million tons of gas to China's Sinopec. The landmark deal will last 20 years and is worth over $30 billion. It's the largest ever deal of its kind, and it makes the company the top American liquefied natural gas exporter to China. Venture Global will source the gas from its plant in Louisiana. The CEO told CNBC the deal was attractive because he took about 30% off the cost compared with American producers and more than 50% compared to international projects. He says the company is focused on giving customers the lowest prices. The gas is likely to aid China's energy crisis. Based on this deal, China Affairs analyst Tang Jingyuan questioned if Beijing is really preparing to attack Taiwan. He said if Beijing attacks Taiwan, the U.S. would very likely come to Taiwan's defense. And in a war, the U.S. would cut off energy deliveries to the enemy country. And so the new massive gas deal would turn to ash. How would Beijing deal with its energy crisis then? People from a small southwest Chinese city have been locked down for 7 months in the name of CCP virus control. Small-scale protests broke out, but nothing seems to have changed. People there hope their desperate voices can be heard.
After months of lockdown, villagers from southwest China are on the brink of collapse. Ruili is a small Chinese city bordering Burma or Myanmar. Residents there have been stuck under a strict lockdown for the past 7 months. Hundreds of thousands of people fled the city, and those who remain are getting desperate. A group of them gathered to protest the lockdown on Tuesday and Wednesday. The situation in Ruili was largely hidden from the public eye until its former vice mayor posted a request for help on social media days ago. A local resident says the current mayor's reaction to the post has made the situation even worse. To protect residents' identities, we distorted their voices and gave them pseudonyms.
I feel that the lockdown only got worse. They tightened control on the exit points. It was to such an extent that workers there fought with residents on the first day after the social media post.
Chen explained that if residents want to leave their village, they must first apply, then wait for written approval, and then get a city official to sign it. What's more, the financial aid given to residents over the 7-month lockdown totals to an equivalent of about $155. And not everyone got the money.
From July until now, we only got 1,000 yuan, a 10-kilogram bag of rice, and some oil. That's all. Now we don't get a dime, not a cent of income. We can only count on our savings and buy vegetables from other residents to survive. We can only survive.
Chen says the Chinese state-run media reports covering the situation in the city are false.
Just yesterday, we read in the media about how nice Ruili is, how abundant supplies are, about how people exercise in parks. Actually, all parks are closed now. I don't know how they could do it like in the reports.
Residents with mortgages and car loans are also concerned over their social credit ratings.
We don't have income and can't leave. Authorities won't ask banks to postpone our mortgages and loan payments. Many people will be deemed untrustworthy in social credit system as a result.
China's social credit system determines whether or not a citizen can enjoy certain privileges by measuring their trustworthiness. Missing loan or mortgage payments may cause a person's score to drop. Li says she's also worried about the future of Ruili.
Now, even if the lockdown ends, the overall economy of the city has already plummeted and population has decreased tremendously. There are definitely far less tenants than before. They won't come back. They've been through so much and are scared.
Another resident reports that not everyone actually received the city's financial aid.
A family of 3 killed themselves with gas last night. There's no report on details. The firefighters and police came last night, but there's no official report on it.
Liu described being made to take over 100 virus tests in recent months. He says some places require residents to get tested daily and explained that out of over 100 shops and storefronts in the local market, only 3 or 5 are still open. Most have left the city. He adds that he doesn't know if they'll return.
China is bringing science fiction to life in its attempts to contain the virus. Officials recently created a new term, space-time accompanier. Beginning Wednesday this week, citizens receive text messages with a term, followed by a virus test request. The new phrase refers to someone who has spent at least 10 minutes with a confirmed patient within an area equal to about 6 blocks of New York City. When either of them have been in the area for a total of 30 hours or less than 2 days in the previous 2 weeks, the unconfirmed person will officially become a space-time accompanier. In China's 3-color health code system, people with the yellow code are forbidden to access some public places. That's until the code turns green again following 2 weeks of quarantine and several negative virus test results. But officials don't track the person physically. They are traced by their cell phone signals. Officials reported Thursday a total of nearly 100,000 people in just one city are at risk of becoming space-time accompaniers. And according to official data, there are only a handful of new confirmed cases in one day. Yet another Chinese property developer is facing debt worries. Kaiser Group Holdings said Thursday that its finance unit had missed a payment on a wealth management product. This is adding to concerns of a cash crisis at the company. As a result of the missed payment on Friday, the group and 3 of its unit shares had been suspended at the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. A wealth management product is something that can be invested in. Companies market the product as something that can offer high yields after investment. For example, China Merchants Bank offers wealth management products with an estimated yield of up to 6%. Kaiser Group's troubles came amid concerns about a deepening liquidity crisis in the Chinese property sector. The group is plagued with a string of offshore debt defaults, credit rating downgrades, and sell-offs in the developer shares and bonds in recent weeks. China's trade practices were under close scrutiny at a regularly scheduled World Trade Organization trade policy review. Many member states strongly criticized the country's policies. This year marks 20 years since China's accession to the WTO. The hope was that after it became a member, the country would change its practices to be more compatible with the international trading system. But the U.S. representative to the WTO says that hasn't happened. Instead, China is doubling down on its state-led, non-market approach to trade, to the detriment of workers and businesses in the United States and other countries. This is far from the only criticism during the trade policy review. Many other member states took the opportunity to critique China. They said that China distorts markets by subsidizing state-owned firms, ignoring intellectual property rights, limiting foreign companies' access to China's markets, using forced labor, and coercing smaller governments to accept unfair trade practices. Though China portrayed a very different image of itself. CCP head Xi Jinping says that China has fully fulfilled its WTO commitments. Chinese state-operated outlet The Global Times ran a headline saying that China's trade policies and practices were praised at the WTO. The story did not report the criticism expressed by China's trading partners. A protest at a top university in Hong Kong. During a graduation ceremony on Thursday, 10 graduates launched a protest. They were showing their support for their fellow students who had been sentenced to prison due to their pro-democracy activities. They put their names on 9 cards, and the last card read, "We graduated, but they can't." The action ended after 5 minutes. The same day on campus, banners could be seen protesting against the school taking over the student council. The college is called the Chinese University of Hong Kong. As Chinese as it may sound, its founding had nothing to do with mainland China. It was founded some 60 years ago during British rule. For years, it topped the best college list in Hong Kong, and it has been considered a central site for student protests. Last month, its student council was dissolved under pressure from the school. In COP26 news, Poland and other nations on Thursday pledged to phase out their use of coal-fired power and stop building new plants. COP26 host Britain described the non-binding commitment as putting the end of coal in sight. But on the other side of the planet, more coal power stations are coming up, largely due to China's coal-fueled industry. Global CO2 emissions have been rapidly rebounding to pre-pandemic levels. NTD's David English has the story.
From the global power sector.
The UK government announced on Thursday that several major coal-using nations have pledged for the first time to phase out their use of the fossil fuel or to speed up existing plans to do so. Among them are major coal users such as Poland, Vietnam and Chile.
Today, I think we can say that the end of coal is in sight. The progress we've seen over the past 2 years would have seemed like a lofty ambition when we took on the COP presidency back in 2019.
At least 25 countries, including the US, committed to ending public financing for unabated fossil fuel projects abroad by the end of the next year. Unabated fossil fuel refers to the burning of coal, oil and natural gas without using technology to capture the CO2 emissions.
And so today we are publishing the Global Coal to Clean Power Transition Statement, a commitment to end coal investment, to scale up clean power, to make a just transition and phase out coal in the 2030s in major economies and in the 2040s elsewhere.
The commitments are not binding. Some signatories say they will not be able to phase out coal without sufficient financial help from other countries. They need significant investments to shift their industries and energy sectors to cleaner sources.
But our ability to do so will be determined by the extent of support that we receive from developed economies.
Meanwhile, China's coal production is busier than ever. In the Shanxi region in the north of the country, 2 new coal power stations are in operation, while an existing one is adding extra capacity. One coal seller says he had not heard of COP26, but knows that his livelihood depends on being able to sell the fuel.
My whole family sells coal. My son, my daughter, and I. We've sold coal our whole lives.
A local carbon consultant says getting rid of coal in China is not a quick task, especially when global energy prices are soaring.
You can't reduce coal from tomorrow. It's impossible. I think the government's targets are reasonable. We can't let people suffer coldness and starvation now because of climate change. It's unreasonable.
A new scientific study has found that the dramatic drop in CO2 emissions due to the pandemic lockdowns has pretty much disappeared in a puff of coal-fired smoke, much of it from China. David English, NTD News.
The study said emissions in China were 7% higher in 2021 compared to 2019. India's emissions were only 3% higher. And the rest of the world, including the US and the European Union, polluted less this year than in 2019. Heavy pollution shrouded Beijing on Friday. In parts of the city, visibility was less than 200 yards. As a result, some highways are closed. The air pollution indicator, PM 2.5 level in urban areas of the city, reached as high as 234 micrograms per cubic meter. This, according to the U.S. Embassy in Beijing. But Chinese official data says it's only 204. According to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, a PM 2.5 level beyond 200 means very unhealthy air. A cold wave arriving from Siberia over the weekend is expected to disperse the pollution. Britain could start producing high-powered magnets used in electric vehicles again with government support. That would help to cut its reliance on China. British production of the magnets vanished in the 1990s when the industry found it could not compete with China. But with a huge growth in demand, the government is keen to secure enough supply. And a magnet factory would also help the UK meet its environmental protection goals. NTD's Malcolm Hudson has more on this story.
The British firm Less Common Metals has released a feasibility study looking into the potential creation of a UK-based rare earth magnet operation. The report says that China produces 90% of the global supply of rare earth magnets at highly competitive prices. China dominates the production of rare earths, a group of 17 elements used in magnet production. Its resource advantage has been enhanced by utilizing a low-cost and highly flexible labor base, including forced labor. This has made it difficult for non-Chinese companies to gain and maintain their footing in the markets. However, the shift to renewable energy and electric vehicles, both of which need rare earth magnets, has refocused British attention. The government-funded feasibility study says the need for a secure and stable supply chain independent of the Chinese regime is evident. In 2010, after China attempted to weaponize its rare earth monopoly, Japan responded with a successful initiative. Its government sought new suppliers outside of China by investing in countries with rare earth minerals but that lacked the technology to extract and process them. The chief executive of Less Common Metals, Ian Higgins, says government support for a UK operation would be vital. The EU and the US are also looking to create their own domestic industries for rare earth magnets. Higgins says that a British magnet factory could be built by 2024. It could eventually produce 2,000 tons of rare earth magnets, enough to supply about 1 million electric vehicles. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News, London.
And that's all for today's China in Focus. Thanks for watching and see you next time.